and then we're going to go to Dawson on the 27th, and then we're going to go...
You all know these classic places gold prospectors look for, like inner sides of bends, bedrock crevices, obstacles in the creek, or heavy minerals, etc., etc. Well, they are basically signs for higher likelihood to find gold. And in my personal experience, bedrock crevices may have the highest likelihood to contain gold, but there is also an indicator on the other end of the likelihood scale. There is a sign which indicates by far the lowest likelihood to find gold, and it's maybe nowadays the most important sign to watch out for. You can spend a whole lifetime hunting for gold at the classic spots, finding almost no gold at all. This is because nowadays we often are not the first one at this spot or at this creek.
The obvious classic spots are always mined first.
So the maybe most important point to consider nowadays when gold prospecting is if the ground we are estimating was already prospected. This is very important, especially if you are learning gold prospecting. I had the privilege, when I started, I had access to a few creeks which were pretty virgin, and I could learn this stuff really by making the experiences by myself, and this is very important. But you have to make this experience by yourself to find gold at these classic spots, because when you make this experience, it's burned in your brain, in your soul, and you will remember it, or you will automatically look for these places in the future. But if you spend time for prospecting dozens of bedrock crevices without any success, you lose interest in this kind of spot, and that's maybe a mistake. So you can do this basically in two ways. You can search or look for signs for prospecting activity, or you can look for signs that certain situations were in this configuration or in this situation for a very, very long time, and then you're sure it was not prospected there. How to look, or what signs indicate that there was some prospecting activity? Well, obviously, if you see a hole, if you see some rock piles or some dams for the hand sluice, etc., that's no-brainer. Obviously, then there is some prospecting activity, or there was some. But if a flood equalized the terrain, then it's sometimes difficult to see. But normally, creek gravels at good placers, at paste rigs, are kind of mixed. So they contain sand, but also cobbles, rocks. So the whole fraction or the whole spectrum of different size fractions. And it's typically hard packed. There are exceptions, like in large rivers with sandbars, etc. But normally a normal placer is hard packed and with mixed sizes. So if you see a spot which has kind of separated size fractions, like maybe you see some sandier stuff and beside it some larger rocks, this can be an indicator that this ground has seen some prospecting activity, because what we do is we throw away the rocks, we shovel into the sluice, we take out rocks or cobbles from the sluice. Often we move some boulders, and you can see these. And if the flood equalizes it, the hole is maybe first filled with lighter stuff, with sand and so. And the boulders and the rock piles, they remain. You can read these signs.
Of course, there are more signs like trails, trash, or in Alaska, for instance, you often find wood from old mining shafts from the old-timers. Or if there is just sand between rocks, or if there is no gold at obvious places like excellent crevices, etc., then the spot may have already been mined.
It's not easy always, but with some experience you can read it and you can test it as well. Make some test pans, some test holes, and and if you look for heavy concentrates, be careful not to be misled, because heavy concentrates they have to be seen in the right context. when we work for a longer time at a certain spot, at the end of every day we pan our concentrates very likely at the same spot, which is comfortable to pan, you know. And that's exactly what we did this year at a place which we already worked through, where we filled the hole, or the hole was filled by the flood, and after the end of every prospecting day I panned our concentrate in this hole. And what happened, a cuckoo digger tested around and found in this hole lots of really heavy minerals and thought, oh cool, I have to dig there, and he dug down there, so this was really funny. If you see heavy concentrates, this can be from other prospectors, so you have to see it in the whole context. Heavy concentrates combined with hard-packed material, and most important of all, combined with gold, that's at the end of the day what you are searching for, this means something. So, and then how can we see if a certain setup or situation was that way for a very long time? Well, first thing we look for are the grinded shapes of the rocks.
If you watch this video of the Bavarian gold prospector Thorsten Marx, you see exactly what I mean.
If you see several rocks which share a certain grinded shape in the direction of the water flow, then you can be pretty sure these rocks remained in this position for a very, very long time. Or if you watch at boulders, they have typically on the backside of the water flow, they have this kind of an edge. And if this edge and all the other shapes of this rock are oriented that way that it makes sense with the water flow, then it's probably in that orientation for a very long time. These spots are interesting. You want to look for these spots.
Another indicator are rocks jammed into crevices so hard that you have to use a crowbar to take them out. And if the upper portion of the rocks is ground down to where they are jammed into the crevice, you are very likely the first one taking them out.
And there is also another thing which is very dangerous to think about, because obviously you can look for spots which other prospectors were scared of to work at because of the danger of rockfall or floods or something like that. And well, please don't go there. And if you do, it's your own responsibility. You are responsible for your safety yourself. Please don't do that. What you can do is go to a spot like this here, which is difficult to access, which is needs some effort to get there. And you can also search for spots which needs a lot of work, because typically when a good creek is prospected by many prospectors, they typically first do the light or the easy spots at the classic spots. And if they find gold, they spend years with mining these spots, you know. So they leave sometimes the not so nice spots behind, because there were easier spots. You can look for these spots, and this typically means just more work. But then if you are in an area which was exposed to serious prospecting activity over years, maybe you can change the strategy then. What we do actually currently in a certain creek, which we know what was also already heavily prospected, we work it through again, because we know that these guys were not very thorough and they left some gold behind. They didn't work with gold detectors and hand pumps, etc. And also another point is, if you work with hand sluices, it's very easy to miss part of the pay streak, because you have to place your hand sluice somewhere to work. And lazy prospectors leave the hand sluice at the same place. You know what I mean? We often change the position of the sluice box because we want to take out everything. And if you have to make it dependent on who was prospecting there. Maybe you have to gather some information. If there was a really good experienced gold prospector which is thorough, leave the spot alone. But if some beginners tried there, or many different people who didn't know about the others, and so it's very likely that they missed some parts.
Of course, I'm talking about spots which were abandoned for a long time. Never go to spots which have recent activity.
And what we do then is, we don't follow the gold. We just work through everything which is accessible. And that way we found pretty nice gold. It's kind of a lottery because it's spotty then, the gold. Then there are days without gold, and immediately you hit a good spot again. And often the spots which are most difficult to work contain good gold, and often lazy prospectors left these spots alone. Don't go right away for the obvious crevices and all this stuff in such an area, because they are were prospected for sure. If you are in a virgin creek, it's completely different story. If you are a completely new virgin creek, go for these crevices, because you will find gold there for sure if there is any. But if you are in a heavily worked creek, this can be very misleading. That was my experience when I started here in the mountains with gold prospecting. I hated it after a while to clean out crevices because I found no gold in it. But the reason was not that the crevices were bad gold traps. The reason was that they were already prospected. So I started to open new ground, which was difficult to access. And there the crevices, they contained very nice gold. So that's another strategy you can use. And sometimes, my friends, with all this good advice, we just have to shut up, go out and prospect. Good luck, my friends. See you next time.